Chapter 28, Revolutions in the National States in the Atlantic World. We have a lot of revolutions to talk about here, and almost all those revolutions are based on the Enlightenment ideals. Kings had justified their power for the most part by saying that God had done it, right? You have all your absolute monarchies with divine rights, or you go to China with the mandate of heaven. For the most part here, you're looking at places where you have people starting to say, what about all of us? They want to apply natural laws and rights would provide infinite progress to people. And so they want to upset the political and the social order. And one of the things here they want is popular sovereignty. And that is the fact that people have the political power, not kings. And they want to make kings responsible to the people with calls for equality, going against the aristocrats. You can read those Enlightenment ideals there: popular sovereignty, individual freedom, political and legal equality. Now, that is going to differ depending on which person you're talking about, because some see it cited were women, children, peasants, laborers, slaves, people of color. They're not included by all people by any stretch of the imagination. But as a whole, power lies with the people, individual freedom, weaken the religious authority, and that's how it's going to work. There are three major ones here we're going to talk about. The first one is Locke. He is British. He is right around the time of the Glorious Revolution. He says his view of the social contract is that individuals voluntarily form societies and establish government. It gives authority to the leader in return for protection in individual rights. If the government's not doing that, it's time to rebel. In other words, rulers get their power from the people, and the people have the power to take that away. Second one is Voltaire. That's actually not his real name. He wrote under a pen name, and that is Voltaire is his pen name because he wrote in satire. He would have been a perfect writer for Saturday Night Live because he went after the church, he went after the monarchy, and one thing he says is freedom of religion should exist. He writes in satire. Francois Marie Artois, that's what he spoke out against, big time, anything with the church. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, basically, he's all about he writes a book called The Social Contract, 1762, that people are sovereign together and the general will of the people should carry the day. And our last one is Montesquieu. He's all about checks and balances. All of them have somewhat a role in our first revolution that we're going to look at, and that is the American Revolution, 1775 to 1783. So, looking at the United States here, 1750, both sides are benefiting from each other. They're trading together. They share cultural heritage for the most part. They have the English language. The people in the American colonies view themselves as British subjects as a whole. However, then the 7 Years' War happens, also known as the French and Indian War. And then because the British had gone into a lot of debt during that war, tax the colonists. And this gets the colonists really mad because why are they taxing us and not the British? We're no different than them. And so the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, the Townshend Act, the Tea Act, the Quartering Act, all of them as a whole were very different. And this leads to a boycott of British goods. And the colonists are calling for independence. The legislatures in the United States, or what will become the United States, had already gained a lot of freedom from the British in terms of that. And now this just keeps going. This just keeps going. And the thing that they're most mad about, yes, why are they getting treated different than British subjects? Well, they don't have a vote. No taxation without representation in Parliament. We have the Boston Tea Party, where a bunch of what will become the United States throw tea because they won't drink British tea. And now you have a new group that comes into play. That's the Continental Congress that works to coordinate efforts of the resistance. One of the documents that comes out of that is written by Thomas Jefferson, who's inspired directly by Locke, and his writings are all over it. Basically, hey, you infringed, we gave you the power to rule, we want to take it back. So Jefferson is very much inspired by Locke. And now, and one of the phrases he also has in there is unalienable rights, those natural rights that should exist to all humans. And what's going to break out is the American Revolutionary War. The British were the power in the world. The British were the power in the world, and by all means, they should have won the war. They're the most professional army in the world, the most powerful navy, one of the strongest governments. You have people in the United States that were loyal to the colonists. About 20% of the people wanted to stay a part of the British Empire. And then you have people that stay out of it, like the Quakers and the Native Americans. But the U.S. plays to their advantage, or what will become the U.S. plays to their advantage in a couple main ways. One, they don't fight. The war is on the other side of the ocean for the British, so they have to get everything over here. They will attack supply lines. Then, the British are the power in the world. That also means they have a lot of enemies. France, That's the biggest one. Spain, Netherlands, and German princes all help the colonies out. The U.S. will get their main leadership from George Washington, and in the end, the British surrender to Washington and Yorktown in 1783, and the U.S. has won their independence. At that point, they you will talk significantly more about the revolution in a U.S. history class. Do not get me wrong on that. For world history class, this is about as much depth as we need. First articles, our first government is the Articles of Confederation, fails miserably. And then the Constitutional Convention drafts the Constitution, 1787, highlights the rights of individuals. However, it's only men who own property have full rights, basically, at this point in time. Political equality for all white landowning men. You have the divide between state governments and the national government, so federalism. Then the other key thing is now people aren't British any longer. People start changing their identity has now changed, and this is going to be a key part in really all the revolutions. People now start to identify as American and pride in America instead of British. That is one thing in all the revolutions that's going to start to come out. People change. Basically, you start to have this nationalism concept, the belief in a group of people as opposed to a monarchy.